I want you to just take a second and look out the window, like right now.
Just glance outside, yeah.
Right. Just look at whatever patch of nature happens to be closest to you. I mean, maybe it's a carefully curated garden in your backyard, or, maybe it's just a forgotten ditch running along the side of the highway.
Or even just a crack in the pavement where some of those stubborn weeds are, like, pushing their way through the concrete.
Exactly. Because usually when we look at those spaces, we just see scenery, or worse, we see a landscaping chore. We're like, oh, I have to go weed that.
Yeah, bust out the weed whacker.
Right. But what if that exact same patch of green was actually, well, a living, breathing medicine cabinet? And taking it a step further, what if it was a profound source of esoteric power?
Which is a huge mental leap for most people. I mean, it fundamentally alters your relationship with the very ground you walk on. You sort of stop seeing this passive collection of random biological organisms, and you start recognizing an active, highly dynamic toolkit, one that's been utilized for centuries, really.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that shift in perspective is the central mission of today's deep dive. We are exploring this truly fascinating, totally multifaceted source document. It's simply titled 13 Herbs for a Witch's Cabinet.
Which is such a great title.
It is. And
Right.
the goal here is to really understand how this specific text bridges three worlds that modern society usually keeps strictly segregated.
Segregate, yeah.
We have the highly practical, dirt under your fingernails world of permaculture, then the holistic, physiological world of traditional herbal healing, and finally, the esoteric, energetic world of magic.
And what's interesting is the author actually makes this tripartite bridge explicit right from the jump, from the opening sentences of the text.
You really do?
Yeah, they don't separate the garden from the apothecary or the altar. It's all one thing. They frame these 13 chosen herbs as multifaceted tools, and they specifically outline their uses for dealing with disease, handling magical needs, and just everyday culinary cooking.
Yeah, I want to pause on that word, disease.
Oh, the hyphenation.
Yes. That specific orthographic choice, the hyphenation of disease, I noticed that immediately. And it's incredibly telling about the underlying philosophy here, don't you think?
Absolutely. It totally strips away the clinical sterility of the word.
Right, because when you hyphenate it as disease, you are deliberately moving away from the strict, modern allopathic definition. The idea of just a localized biological failure or an invading pathogen.
You're framing illness as a lack of ease, like a fundamental lack of balance.
Exactly.
It implies that the body or the environment or the spirit has just fallen out of its natural homeostasis. So in this paradigm, healing isn't just about, deploying a chemical to attack a germ.
Right, it's about restoring a broader systemic harmony.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the journey this text really requires of its readers. I mean, you are being asked to view the natural world through multiple lenses simultaneously.
Yeah, it's not just a plant.
Right. When you plant a seed, you aren't just cultivating a leaf to steep in hot water. You are actively engaging with a living entity that occupies physical, energetic, and ecological roles all at once.
It is a completely integrated system, which is honestly something we've largely lost in modern agriculture and medicine.
Oh, for sure.
And to truly grasp this author's philosophy of the multifaceted herb, we have to start with the very first plant in this cabinet. I mean, it is the heavy hitter of the text.
By far.
By far the most extensively documented plant in the entire document. We are talking about comfrey.
Comfrey is just the perfect ambassador for this entire paradigm. I mean, it bridges the dirt and the divine so seamlessly.
It really does. And I want to read the list of alternate names the text provides for comfrey, because if you know anything about folk medicine, the nomenclature basically tells the whole story.
It's a roadmap.
Yeah. So listen to this array of names. We've got knitbone, knitback, blackwort, consound, consolida, bruisewort, slippery root, wallwort, boneset, miracle herb, healing herb, gum plant, acier, and the ancient Saxon name, yallock.
That is quite the historical resume right there.
Half ear is my personal favorite, I won't lie.
It's very descriptive. But if you analyze those names, you see exactly what this plant has been trusted to do across so many disparate cultures. Like the botanical name is Symphytum officinale.
Okay, break that down for us.
Sure, so Symphytum is derived from the Greek, and it literally means grown together. And the text also points out that the common name, comfrey, likely originates from the Latin word conferva, which translates to knitting together.
Wow.
Yeah, so these aren't just quaint poetic folk names. They are ancient, highly accurate descriptions of the plant's biological utility.
Knit bone is about as direct as it gets. You have a fractured tibia, you reach for the plant that linguistically translates to knitting bones back together.
Exact.
But before we get to the actual cellular biology of how it achieves that, let's look at how it grows. Because the permaculture aspect is deeply tied to its esoteric power here.
Right.
The text places Comfrey in the Boraginaceae family, noting it is part of the forget-me-not and borage covens.
Which, by the way, the use of the word covens for a botanical family, that is a brilliant stylistic choice by the author.
It's so good. It immediately blends Linnaean taxonomy with esoteric grouping.
Totally. And physically, Comfrey is an absolute ecological powerhouse. The text describes it as having these deep tap roots that resemble huge carrots.
Huge carrots, yeah.
And these roots are relentless. Like in permaculture, Comfrey is known as a dynamic accumulator.
Meaning what, exactly?
Well, it means those massive taproots push deep down into the subsoil, far below where typical garden plants can even reach. And they mine essential nutrients like potassium and calcium, pulling them all the way up into these vibrant green leaves.
Okay, wait, let me push back on this idealized garden image for a second.
Go for it.
Because if you've ever actually tried to grow comfrey, you know it is nearly impossible to get rid of. I mean, if I'm trying to build a balanced, harmonious permaculture system and I introduce a plant with roots like massive carrots that aggressively seeks out water and relentlessly mines nutrients, isn't that thing just going to completely take over my yard?
Yeah, it absolutely will.
So how does a prolific, almost invasive plant like that fit into the idea of balance that the author is prioritizing?
It's a great question, and it's the exact friction many gardeners experience. But the text actually connects that specific, aggressive biological behavior directly to its magical applications.
No, really?
Yeah. The author notes that comfrey is utilized in money spells and abundance workings.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Right. Why? Because of its prolific nature and its deep, vibrant emerald green leaf color, the unstoppable growth that threatens to take over your garden. Well, in an esoteric context, that represents unstoppable abundance.
That is fascinating.
You want your finances, your resources, and your personal stability to grow with the exact same aggressive, deep-rooted tenacity that comfrey exhibits. So its very prolific nature, its biological refusal to die, basically, is exactly what makes it a potent, energetic tool for grounding and bringing in wealth.
That completely reframes the concept of a weed, doesn't it?
It really does.
The biological problem is actually the esoteric solution.
I love that. Okay, so we have this unstoppable green force pulling calcium out of the subsoil. Let's talk about the actual biology. Because folklore aside, how does a plant actually knit a broken bone or heal a deep wound?
So the author details the physical properties, focusing really heavily on the roots and leaves. Comfrey contains what the text identifies as a nitrogenous crystalline substance known as allantoin.
Allantoin.
Right. It makes up about 0.6 to 0.8% of the plant's composition. And allantoin has the remarkable, scientifically verified biological ability to promote cell proliferation.
So it isn't just like soothing the wound. Allantoin is acting as a chemical signal.
Exactly.
It triggers the body's fibroblasts, which are the cells responsible for making collagen and connective tissue, to basically work in overdrive.
Yeah.
It's a cellular catalyst.
That's exactly what it is. It stimulates leukocytosis, which is the production of white blood cells, and it encourages the rapid generation of new tissue.
The text states, it has historically been prescribed in medicines to aid in knitting bones back together, and for the accelerated healing of deep cuts, puncture wounds, and severe bruising. It's also a staple in ointments for persistent skin problems like psoriasis.
That's incredible.
But allantoin isn't working alone here. The text points out that comfrey contains massive amounts of mucilage, especially concentrated in the root.
Mucilage, which means it contains complex polysaccharides that become highly viscous and gel-like when mixed with water, right?
Yeah, the text aptly compares the texture to marshmallow.
Oh, that paints a picture.
It does. And this mucilage is highly demulcent, meaning it soothes and protects irritated or inflamed internal tissues. Think like a sore throat or an ulcerated stomach lining.
Right, it coats it.
Exactly. And mechanically, this highly viscous, sticky quality also makes it incredibly pragmatic for external use. Like if you are trying to make a compress or a poultice to pack onto a wound, the mashed comfrey root naturally binds itself together into this cohesive paste.
So it requires very little preparation.
Very little.
Okay, so we have this incredibly potent, cell-accelerating, demulcent paste. It sounds like a literal miracle cure. But Here's where we hit a massive, unavoidable tension in the text.
Yes, we do.
Because as miraculous as allantoin and mucilage sound, the text brings up a very serious controversy. The author notes that in December of 1995, the FDA announced a severe warning about Comfrey.
A very severe warning.
Yeah, stating it may cause serious adverse reactions. Specifically, there is scientific evidence that it may cause significant liver damage or even cancer if taken internally over an extended period of time.
And this is where the author's underlying worldview really crystallizes for the reader. I mean, the science behind the FDA warning is based on the presence of pyrrolizidine alkaloids, or PAs, in Comfrey.
Right.
When processed by the liver, certain PAs can cause veno-occlusive disease, which is basically blocking the small veins in the liver. It's bad. But the text doesn't dive into the dense biochemistry of PAs. Instead, it presents this controversy as a sociological and political issue.
It really does. The author offers two distinct possibilities for why this FDA warning exists, and it is just a fascinating look into the cultural friction between folk medicine and institutional authority.
It is.
So the first possibility they suggest is that this is a deliberate conspiracy by the American Medical Association.
The AMA.
Right. The theory is that the AMA wants to strip power away from natural healers and regular people and consolidate that power and, the profit into the hands of overpaid physicians.
It is a classic anti-institutional stance. The argument is essentially, why would the medical establishment allow you to cure your own ailments with a weed you can literally grow in a ditch for free when they can sell you a synthesized pharmaceutical?
Yeah, exactly.
That is the first option the author presents. But then the second option is a more measured concession. It's the belief that it might simply be better to be safe than sorry.
Which is a remarkably pragmatic pivot. And, just to be clear to you listening, our goal here isn't to litigate the FDA's rulings or the AMA's lobbying practices.
Definitely not.
What is fascinating is how this specific author processes deeply conflicting information. Because they don't just blindly reject the science, but they also don't blindly accept the institutional mandate either.
And their ultimate conclusion really reflects that nuanced skepticism. Regardless of whether you believe that PA alkaloids are a genuine, lethal danger, or you believe the warning is a protectionist medical conspiracy, the author concludes that the fundamental rule of herbalism still applies.
Which is that everything must be kept in balance.
Exactly. They advocate for a strict cycle. They write that it is best to never use any herb over a long, uninterrupted period of time.
Which is incredibly sound physiological advice, honestly.
It really is. The body habituates to alkaloids, and the liver needs time to clear metabolites. So the author suggests taking regular, extended breaks from any herbal supplements or teas. And if you are truly concerned about the liver toxicity associated with Comfrey, they suggest restricting its use entirely to external applications.
Like the poultices, salves, and washes.
Right. They note these are highly effective for tissue repair without introducing the alkaloids into the hepatic system.
So you don't have to banish the miracle herb from your cabinet. You just have to respect its boundaries.
Exactly.
And speaking of practical application, the text abruptly transitions from this heavy institutional medical controversy straight into highly specific, almost folksy anecdotes about feeding livestock.
It's quite the tonal shift. But this is where that permaculture foundation reemerges. We mentioned earlier that Comfrey is a dynamic accumulator.
Right, mining the subsoil.
Yeah. And because it pulls up so much nitrogen, calcium, and potassium, the leaves are incredibly nutrient dense. The text notes it contains 35% protein, which makes it an elite, high-yield fodder for homesteaders.
The author shares these great observations about their own chickens. Like, the chickens apparently devour the plant, especially the flowers, and the author claims that adding Comfrey to their diet is an instant cure for soft eggshells.
Which makes perfect sense, given the calcium content we just discussed.
Right. They also note it turns the egg yolks a deep, vibrant yellow-orange, which indicates increased vitamin A and beta-carotene content.
They also utilize the leaves as primary feed for their rabbits. The astringent tannins in the leaves help the rabbits with bowel problems, and the mucilage we talked about earlier is specifically cited as having to soothe sore or bleeding nipples on lactating does.
Wow, that's incredibly specific.
It is. Plus, from a pure economic standpoint, growing a patch of unstoppable Comfrey drastically reduces the homesteader's reliance on highly processed, expensive, and often non-organic commercial rabbit pellets.
And there is this wonderful tiny parenthetical aside right in the middle of this livestock
I
discussion.
know the one you mean.
Yeah, the author quickly clarifies, no, I don't kill the bunnies and chicks for food.
It's such a small detail, but it deeply humanizes the text.
It really does. It reminds you that this isn't an agricultural manual written by a factory farmer. It's written by someone deeply emotionally invested in their local ecosystem.
And it perfectly reinforces the specific esoteric energy that the text associates with Comfrey. When discussing its magical properties, the author aligns Comfrey with feminine energy, the slow grounding planet of Saturn, and the element of water.
Okay, Saturn and water.
Yeah. Beyond abundance workings, it is primarily used for providing safety during travel and invoking the protective, nurturing, loving ways of a mother.
And, consider the implications of that.
What's fascinating here is how one single resilient plant seamlessly connects the deeply mundane, physically messy act of tending to a rabbit's bleeding, lactating nipples all the way to the esoteric act of casting a protective travel ward, invoking the ancient planetary energy of Saturn.
Right. In this author's paradigm, those aren't separate categories of reality. They are just different expressions of the exact same biological and energetic truth.
That is the defining essence of the witch's cabinet. The holistic, the agricultural, and the magical are infinitely permeable categories.
Okay, so we have Comfrey serving as this deep, watery, Saturn-aligned anchor digging into the dark earth. But from there, the author structurally pivots. We move upward, out of the heavy, wet soil, to a plant that is almost entirely defined by its relationship with the sky and the light. We move to chamomile.
It is a brilliant, necessary, energetic contrast. If Comfrey represents the relentless pull of the deep earth, chamomile is the open, yielding sky.
I love that.
And the text is very precise here, distinguishing between the two primary medicinal types. We have German chamomile, which is Metricaria chamomilla, and Roman chamomile, Anthemis nobilis.
Are they very different?
Well, the author essentially tells the reader to look at the subtle differences in their growth habits and choose whichever suits their specific garden's microclimate best.
And just like with the heavy hitter Comfrey, the alternate names for chamomile are a historical roadmap.
Let's hear them.
Okay, so for the German variety, we have the straightforward, wild chamomile, and Hungarian chamomile. But the Roman chamomile names are where the cultural history really shines. We have Mathan from the Saxons. We have the wig plant. We have manzanilla, which is Spanish for little apple.
Manzanilla.
And kamaimelon, which is Greek for on the ground. And an apple, ground apple.
And that recurring olfactory reference to apples is prominent across multiple cultures. It's really hinting at the high concentration of specific volatile esters that give the crushed leaves and flowers that sweet, fruity scent.
Oh, that makes sense.
But there is one specific German colloquialism the author highlights that carries immense psychological weight. The text notes that the Germans commonly regarded this plant as alles zu vertrau.
Alles zu vertrau.
Right, which roughly translates to completely trustworthy.
Completely trustworthy. I mean, I love that framing. Calling a botanical organism completely trustworthy is an entirely different relationship than calling it effective.
It really is.
It's like having that one hyper-reliable friend you call when your car breaks down at 2 a.m. or your life is falling apart. You don't call a wrench trustworthy, you call a companion trustworthy. It implies a proven generational relationship of gentle, reliable efficacy.
Exactly. Chamomile is not a volatile, aggressive intervention like some of the herbs we will discuss later. It is a steady, stabilizing presence. And that inherent steadiness is reflected in his permaculture profile, too.
How so?
Well, the text describes it as a devoted sun lover that requires fertile, well-drained soil. He doesn't want the deep, wet bogs of Comfrey. In the author's personal garden, they note the best results come from eastern or southeastern exposure.
So it gets the morning light.
Yes, allowing it to soak up the morning light, but providing it with partial shade in the harsh afternoon heat.
And the text includes this beautiful, almost romantic piece of imagery regarding its daily biological rhythm. The author writes that chamomile seems to actively enjoy greeting the sun every morning by lifting her petals up to catch his rays.
And that specific phototropic behavior, the flowers actively tracking and opening to the sunlight, introduces a really fascinating debate within the broader esoteric and magical community, which our author decides to address directly.
Right, the energetic gender mapping of the plant.
Yes, because in traditional Western occultism, correspondences are everything.
Right.
The text notes that the famous esoteric author Scott Cunningham, whose encyclopedia is basically standard issue for modern practitioners, he strictly categorizes chamomile as a masculine plant.
Oh, interesting.
And Cunningham has massive historical precedent for this. Early Teutonic tribes, as well as the ancient Egyptians, explicitly dedicated chamomile to their respective sun gods. I mean, the morphology of the flower itself, a bright, prominent yellow center radiating white petals outward in a perfect circle, it is an undeniable solar symbol.
Yeah, the physical form literally mimics the celestial body. But our author actually disagrees with that ancient consensus, don't they?
They do, and their reasoning is entirely based on practical clinical experience. The author points out that despite the solar morphology, the actual physical medicine the plant provides, which is deeply soothing, anti-inflammatory, and calming to the nervous system, feels inherently feminine to them.
So we have a fascinating contradiction here.
Very much so.
We have ancient Teutonic and Egyptian traditions calling it a masculine sun god plant based on how it looks and grows, and the author's modern practical experience feeling it as a feminine, calming energy based on how it heals. So how does the text reconcile that friction?
By elevating it above the binary altogether, the author concludes that chamomile represents the perfect equilibrium between masculine and feminine energies.
It's a great way to look at it.
They write this wonderful summarizing thought. Truly with chamomile, earth meets sun and sky. It acts as the great harmonizer within the cabinet, balancing aggressive solar action with the soothing earthly result.
I love that. And, as much as it harmonizes invisible energies, there is a very physical, chemical attribute of chamomile mentioned in the text that is genuinely shocking if you aren't a seasoned herbalist.
Oh, the color of the oil.
Yes, because when you or I think of chamomile, we immediately think of the colors yellow and white. We picture yellow centers, white petals, and the pale yellow tea you drink before bed. But the text reveals that true, pure, essential oil of chamomile is actually a dark, vibrant blue.
Wait, really? Bright blue?
Yes! Isn't that wild?
It is a stunning botanical fact, and this isn't magic. It is complex chemistry. The essential oil contains a sesquiterpenes called matricin.
Matricin, okay.
Right. When the plant material is subjected to the high heat and pressure of the steam distillation process to extract the oil, that matricin degrades and transforms into a compound called chamomile.
Chamomile.
And chamomile is deeply, intensely blue. It's also the specific compound responsible for much of the plant's potent anti-inflammatory properties.
Wow, so the medicine is literally the blue.
Exactly. And the author uses this hardcore biochemical reality to issue a very practical, almost consumer advocacy warning to the reader.
Right, they state point blank that if you are buying essential oils and the chamomile oil in the bottle is yellow, one of three things has occurred.
And none of them are good.
Right. It is either heavily diluted with a cheap carrier oil, it has oxidized and aged so badly that the chamomile is degraded and the blue faded to yellow, or, and this is my favorite phrase in the whole document, it is an artificial interloper.
An artificial interloper. That is a brilliant way of describing synthetic, petroleum-derived fragrance oils that masquerade as true medicine.
It really is.
And this specific warning demonstrates how deep the required knowledge base goes. To maintain a functional witch's cabinet, you cannot just blindly purchase something off a shelf because a marketing label says chamomile.
You have to actually know what you're looking for.
Yes. You have to understand the actual biochemical markers of purity. In this case, the thermal degradation of matricin into blue chamomile, to ensure you are bringing the actual physical and energetic properties into your space, rather than a useless synthetic imposter.
It is the ultimate litmus test for authenticity. Okay, so we have Comfrey mining the deep, wet soil. We have chamomile carefully positioned to catch the morning sun and synthesize its blue oil. And then the text moves us to a plant that thrives neither in the wet bogs nor the curated garden beds, but in the wilder, neglected edges of our world. We are talking about red raspberry.
Botanically known as Rubus idaeus. And the text notes it is also recognized by Old Saxon and German names like Heinberry, Heinbeer, and Heinber.
Heinber.
Yeah. And the ecological niche this plant occupies is a stark departure from the careful, deliberate cultivation required for chamomile.
Yeah, the author notes that in the wild, these plants specifically prefer to grow in ditches or waste areas, like overgrown fence rows or the edges of clearings. They need about 4 to 6 hours of sunlight in ground that doesn't completely dry out. The text mentions they are beautiful and easy to cultivate domestically, provided you prune out the dead canes and mulch them heavily. But I have a question about this specific habitat.
What's that?
Why do we historically find some of the most fiercely protective, deeply potent medicinal plants growing in the most discarded, overlooked places, like literal roadside ditches?
That is such a profound observation. If you view it through the lens of evolutionary ecology, It
Right.
actually makes perfect sense. Plants that establish themselves in waste areas, ditches, and the margins of human development are pioneer species.
Okay.
They have to be incredibly resilient. They survive in highly competitive, disrupted environments where no one is watering them or mending their soil. To survive, they have to develop robust immune systems, aggressive root networks, and high concentrations of secondary metabolites.
Secondary metabolites being what?
They are the chemical compounds the plant uses to defend against pests and stress. When we consume these plants, we are essentially harvesting those secondary metabolites. We are chemically borrowing their evolutionary toughness.
Oh, wow. That makes so much sense. Their struggle for survival is literally what manufactures the medicine.
Exactly.
And the physical and magical attributes of red raspberry reflect that fierce resilience perfectly. The text briefly lists it as an effective treatment for diarrhea and as a source of general nutrition, largely due to its high vitamin and tannin content. But its absolute primary focus across centuries of herbalism is on women's health.
Specifically regarding pregnancy and lactation.
Right.
And the biochemistry here is fascinating. Red raspberry leaves contain an alkaloid called fragrine. The
Fragrine.
text notes that it is highly recommended for pregnant women because it makes the process of childbirth easier and actively strengthens the uterus.
How does it do that?
Fragrine actually works by toning the muscles of the pelvic region, including the uterus itself. It doesn't force contractions like a pharmaceutical inducer might. Rather, it helps the muscle fibers cross-link more efficiently, making the contractions that do occur more organized and effective.
That's amazing.
The text describes it as a good and proven antispasmodic, which is why it is also highly effective at easing painful, cramping menstruation.
The author also mentions that brewing a strong tea from the leaves will help soothe cold symptoms, again pointing back to those astringent tannins. But notice how fiercely specific the physiological healing is here.
It's very targeted.
It is chemically fortifying the very organ of human generation. It is organizing the chaos of childbirth. And logically, that profound physiological utility dictates its energetic correspondence.
The text is incredibly succinct here. It simply states its magical attribute is protective in a mothering way.
Which perfectly mirrors the maternal energy we explored with Comfrey.
It does. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a distinct difference in the flavor of that mothering.
Yeah.
Yeah, where Comfrey was the deep, heavy, grounding mother knitting your bones back together, red raspberry is the resilient, fiercely protective wild mother growing in the ditch, actively fortifying the body for the trauma of childbirth.
It is a beautiful example of the doctrine of signatures. The idea that the environment and physical form of a plant indicate its energetic purpose.
Absolutely.
Now, after establishing these three deeply detailed granular profiles, the earth of Comfrey, the sky of chamomile, and the wild margins of red raspberry, the source document does something structurally unexpected.
It really threw me on the first read.
Me too. It effectively hits the pause button. The author leaves a very candid note in the text stating, "This rest of this section may take some time to complete. For now, here are the rest of the herbs that will be explained in detail as soon as possible."
It is a remarkable moment of transparency. It transitions the document from a polished, published manual into an active living grimoire.
Yes.
It shows the reader that building a witch's cabinet isn't about running to a metaphysical shop and buying a repackaged kit. It is a lifelong process of observation, research, and incremental expansion.
And even though we don't get the multi-paragraph deep dives for the remaining herbs, the sheer composition of the lists the author provides is highly instructive.
Very much so.
It outlines the massive breadth of knowledge required to handle the full spectrum of disease and magical needs. I want to walk through the remaining 10 core herbs that make up the titular 13 because each one carries a very specific weight.
Let's do it. Let's look at the foundational pharmacology and esoteric meaning behind them. First up is fennel.
Okay, fennel.
Botanically, fennel contains anihol, which is a powerful carminative meaning. It relieves gastrointestinal spasms and gas. Esoterically, it has been used since ancient Rome for psychic protection and warding off negative influences.
Next is lavender. And the text is highly specific here, explicitly listing English lavender, spike lavender, and French lavender as distinct options.
And that distinction matters because of the camphor content.
Oh, really?
Yeah, English lavender is higher in linalool, making it deeply sedative and perfect for calming anxiety or promoting sleep. Spike lavender, on the other hand, has more camphor, making it more stimulating and better for respiratory clearing. But esoterically, all lavenders are associated with purification, peace, and cleansing ritual spaces.
Good to know. Then we have garlic.
The ultimate biological and spiritual defender.
Oh, for sure.
Garlic contains allicin, a broad-spectrum antimicrobial, antibacterial, and antiviral compound. You eat it to fight off physical pathogens, and you hang it in your home to banish energetic pathogens. The mechanism is different, but the intent defense is identical.
Right. Okay, wormwood. This one carries a lot of cultural baggage.
It does. Artemisia absinthium, it contains thujone, which is mildly psychoactive in large doses, though its primary herbal use is as a profoundly bitter tonic to stimulate the liver and digestion.
And magically.
Magically, it is associated with astral projection, necromancy, and thinning the veil between worlds. It is a very intense liminal plant.
Next is rose, and the text specifically notes to find Rosa gallica if available.
The apothecary's rose. It contains geraniol and has actually been proven to lower heart rates and induce physiological coherence. Esoterically, it is the highest vibration plant associated with the divine feminine, pure love, and spiritual healing.
Nice. Okay, catnip, which seems funny to include in a serious medicinal cabinet.
You'd think so, but the Pitta Kataya is actually a fantastic gentle nervine for humans.
Oh, really?
Yeah. While the nepentolactone compound acts as a euphoric stimulant for felines in human biology, it acts as a mild, safe sedative, especially useful for calming hyperactive children or settling an upset stomach. Magically, it is used for attracting luck and historically for strengthening the bond with animal familiars.
That makes a lot of sense. Rosemary.
Rosmarinus officinalis. It contains rosmarinic acid, which modern studies have shown actually improves cognitive function and memory retention.
Rosemary, that's for remembrance, as Shakespeare wrote.
Exactly. Esoterically, it is used for mental clarity, loyalty, and cleansing.
Then we have the capsicum species. The text specifically calls out habanero, cayenne, purira, and jalapeno.
The heat comes from capsaicin, which biologically depletes substance P, a neurotransmitter that sends pain signals to the brain. It is an incredible circulatory stimulant.
And energetically.
Magically, peppers are catalysts. You add them to a spell when you need results immediately. They provide fiery, aggressive acceleration.
I like that. Ginger.
Similar to capsicum, gingerol is a potent circulatory stimulant and anti-nausea agent. Esoterically, it adds heat, passion, and quickens the manifestation of intentions.
And finally, rounding out the core 13, peppermint.
Containing menthol, it acts as a cooling antispasmodic. It relieves tension headaches and aids digestion. Magically, it is used for purification, increasing mental acuity, and elevating the vibration of a space.
It is an incredibly robust, comprehensive list. I mean, you have your fiery catalysts like capsicum, your profound physical defenders like garlic, your deep spiritual connectors like wormwood, and your gentle soothers like lavender.
It's a very well-rounded core kit.
But the document doesn't stop at those 13. It introduces a massive final section called add-ons, which frankly might be the most revealing part of the entire text.
The add-on section is where the author acknowledges that no single practitioner does everything. They basically categorize these additional herbs into 4 distinct, highly specialized specializations.
I think of it like looking at a musician's pedal board.
Okay, I like that analogy.
The core 13 herbs are your standard amplifier and your main guitar. They give you the baseline tone you need to play the gig. But these add-ons are the highly specialized distortion, reverb, and delay pedals that you only stomp on when the specific situation demands a completely different frequency.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Let's look at the first pedal board, the general practitioner.
For this baseline specialization, the text recommends lemon balm, bee balm, elderberry, sagebrush, and horseradish.
If you analyze the pharmacology of that list, these are the herbs of daily homeostasis, like lemon balm is a gentle mood elevator. Elderberry is scientifically proven to inhibit viral replication, providing daily immune support.
And horseradish contains volatile mustard oils that brutally but effectively clear out sinus congestion.
It really is brutal.
But it works. It is the toolkit for navigating the mundane wear and tear of human life.
But then we step up to the second category, which the author titles the healer. And the pharmacology of this list is significantly more aggressive.
Very much so. The text recommends echinacea, thyme, hyssop, sage, cranberry, white willow bark, and eucalyptus.
Let's talk about white willow bark for a second, because that isn't just a folk remedy. That is the foundation of modern pain management.
Exactly. White willow bark contains salicin, which is the direct chemical precursor to modern acetylsalicylic acid.
It's just aspirin.
Right, aspirin. It inhibits the production of prostaglandins in the body, which are the chemicals that cause inflammation and register pain. Eucalyptus contains eucalyptol, a potent expectorant that forcefully clears fluid from the lungs. Echinacea boosts macrophage activity to actively hunt infections.
This is not a loadout for daily maintenance. This is an arsenal for someone actively battling acute disease in themselves or their community.
Yes.
And we have to highlight two very specific plants included at the end of this healer list because their inclusion completely changes the tone of the document.
Wow.
The text lists Papaver somniferum and Cannabis sativa or indica or hybrids. But right next to both of these botanical names, the author explicitly adds a very strict caveat, where available legal.
That caveat is a profound collision of worlds. I mean, Papaver somniferum is the opium poppy.
Right.
By including it alongside cannabis, the author is being historically and biologically accurate. They are acknowledging the immense, undeniable, historically documented pain-relieving power of the opiate alkaloids, like morphine and codeine, and the endocannabinoid system regulation of cannabis.
Right.
For thousands of years, these were the absolute pinnacle tools of this serious herbal healer.
But by repeating where available legal, they are dragging the esoteric practice out of the fantasy realm and grounding it in the very hard, very punitive realities of modern jurisprudence.
Yes, it is a stark reminder that the witch's cabinet does not exist in a vacuum. It exists in the real world, subject to real-world legislation, DEA scheduling, and the consequences of the state. The healer must navigate not just biological toxicity, but legal toxicity.
Wow, well said. Okay, the third category shifts away from clinical healing entirely. It is designed for the love magic worker.
For this highly specific focus, the text recommends tonka bean, apple seeds, vanilla bean, patchouli, dragon's blood, and rose.
Notice how overwhelmingly aromatic this list is compared to the others.
It is entirely sensory, and that is biologically intentional.
Why is that?
The olfactory bulb has a direct neural link to the limbic system, which is the brain's emotional and memory center. Scents essentially bypass the logical cortex. Vanilla and tonka bean contain coumarin compounds that evoke deep, lingering, comforting psychological states.
Patchouli is a heavy, earthy aphrodisiac.
Right. And dragon's blood is a vibrant red resin that provides visual and aromatic intensity. The author is curating a list of plants specifically designed to create a potent atmospheric and psychological experience, which is the fundamental mechanism of love, magic manipulating perception, and emotional receptivity.
But there is a hidden danger here, right? Apple seeds.
Yes, and it shows the edge of this practice. Apple seeds contain amygdalin, which is a cyanogenic glycoside.
Cyanide.
Yeah. If you crush and consume enough of them, they release hydrogen cyanide in the gut. They're literally poisonous.
Oh.
But in love magic, the apple is the ultimate symbol of forbidden knowledge, temptation, and the heart. The magical potency often correlates with the biological danger.
Which brings us perfectly to the fourth and final category. And this is the one that really jolts the reader.
It's intense.
The text states these specific materials are recommended for the frequent magic user or for witches under attack.
The witch is under attack. And the plants listed are galangal root, monk's hood, and mandrake.
This list upgrades the cabinet from a holistic first aid kit to a highly specialized, intensely dangerous apothecary. The witches under attack section sounds like the esoteric equivalent of a panic room.
That's exactly what it is.
Let's talk about monk's hood and mandrake because these aren't herbs you make a sleepy time tea out of.
Yeah, absolutely not. Monk's hood, or aconitum, is one of the most toxic plants on Earth. It contains aconitine, a potent neurotoxin that essentially jams open the sodium channels in the heart and nervous system, leading to rapid paralysis and death.
It's lethal.
Very. And mandrake, Mandragora officinarum, contains powerful anticholinergic tropane alkaloids like scopolamine and hyoscyamine.
What do those do?
It induces profound, terrifying hallucinations, delirium, and historically, the sensation of flying, which, by the way, heavily influenced early folklore about witches on broomsticks.
So if these plants are lethally toxic or delirium-inducing, why on earth are they in a healing cabinet, even one meant for witches under attack?
Because of the homeopathic principle of energetics. In aggressive spiritual warfare or warding, the practitioner isn't ingesting these plants.
Okay, good.
Yeah, please don't ingest them. They're utilizing the plant's terrifying biological reality as an energetic shield. If monk's hood has the biological power to stop a human heart, its energetic frequency is used to stop a psychic attack dead in its tracks. The poison is the protection.
The extreme biological violence of the plant is harnessed as a spiritual deterrent. That is a staggering conceptual leap. I mean, we have moved from feeding chickens extra protein to brewing a mild antispasmodic tea for a cold to navigating the legality of opium, all the way to deploying lethal neurotoxins as spiritual armor.
It's a huge spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And when you step back and look at the totality of these four categories, from the everyday lemon balm to the legal warnings on poppy to the defensive posture of mandrake, what does this text ultimately tell us about the nature of this practice?
So what does this all mean? Well, I think it tells us that this path is vast, ecologically diverse, and genuinely dangerous if approached without respect.
Yeah?
It isn't just about brewing a comforting cup of chamomile tea to relax, although that homeostatic comfort is the foundation.
Huh.
To fully engage with this cabinet, the practitioner is required to wear multiple hats.
You really have to do it all.
You have to be an amateur botanist verifying the blue chamazoline of an oil. You have to be a permaculture farmer understanding how taproots mine subsoil calcium. You have to act as a holistic nurse understanding the mechanics of uterine antispasmodics. And you have to be a spiritual guardian aware of how to wield the energetic frequency of a neurotoxin. The cabinet is as beautiful, complex, and potentially lethal as the natural world itself.
It really is. And the most profound part is that this entire complex, integrated worldview begins simply by looking down at the dirt.
It really does, which brings us right back to you listening to this.
Yeah.
The next time you walk outside and look at the natural world, I challenge you to look past the scenery. That overgrown patch of weeds near the fence line, or that aggressive root system tearing up your garden bed, isn't just a landscaping nuisance. According to the philosophy of this text, it is a dynamic, living toolkit.
Exactly.
It is a complex biochemical factory designed by nature to balance the physical body, the local environment, and the esoteric energies moving around us.
It really demands that you recognize the profound potential in everything growing around you, no matter how mundane it appears.
It really does. And to leave you with a final thought to mull over, think back to our deep dive on Comfrey.
Oh, the knit bone.
Right. We know scientifically that it contains allantoin. We know allantoin physically accelerates cellular proliferation to rapidly knit human connective tissue and bone back together. So the ultimate question is this.
What's the question?
Does Comfrey's esoteric reputation for providing magical protection merely describe its profound, verified biological reality, just filtered through an older, more poetic language? When a plant can literally force your cells to regenerate and heal a shattered bone, where exactly is the line between a biological miracle and a magical spell?